Yeah, so I think you like have the gist of it, which is, let's see, backend. Yeah, so this source folder. Okay, so you can kind of see, what do we have with ETL? By the way, it's like in terms of naming convention, it's referred to both ways. Like you can call this ETL, meaning, right, which stands for extract, transform, and then load, right? Where we said that extract is really like the client, and then transforming is our adapter. And then loading is, saving it to the database, essentially. And our data layer is the model, okay? So you can the model to the database. The term adapter, sometimes you'll hear me call it, right, the adapter pattern. There's a book, give me 1 second. Yeah, called Design Patterns. It's like a classic book. It's referred to as, I don't think, most people don't even know the name. I don't know the name. I had to Google it. You'll just, wait, you can see what I Googled. It's this Gang of Four. All right, it's called the Gang of Four book because it's written by these 4 authors. But anyway, the design pattern, they call it the adapter pattern. That's why you hear me refer to it sometimes as the adapter pattern, okay? Where again, the whole kind of key, right, is the adapter, right, this bridge between our messy JSON data and our clean, nice objects that we prefer, right? Taking the data and inserting it, putting it in this format. Okay, so a couple things, I guess, to go over with this is just with the client. First of all, why do we call it a client? Remember that a client is generally what makes the web request. What makes a web request? For example, you can call the browser. The browser, it can be referred to as a client, okay? It's the thing asking for something, right? The same way a customer might ask for something, right? Also, if you do curl, right? If you do curl to this, then at that point your terminal, I guess, is acting as the client. So we can do curl. I guess I can't. No matches found. Do I need a string? I don't know. Yeah, that worked. Okay. So right, I can just do curl to make it get request to this URL as well. In this case, right, the terminal is what's asking for it, or bash, right? So that's the client. Here, this is an object, right? This is we're creating an object that's asking for the data, right? Or that's making the request. And that's why we refer to this as the client, okay? Other things to know, right? So just in general, we know that, okay, the client's going to make the request. The adapter will take the data, right? Kind of select the attributes, however we do it, and then create instances. And here we could save these instances to the database if we had a corresponding database. And we tie this all together with the main.py. So everything is here, okay? Client.makeRequest, create a client, make the request, get all the data, take this data, pass it through the adapter, and the adapter returns our list of objects. Okay. All right, to now go a little bit deeper on the client thing, generally what you'll do, this is kind of like a pattern, I guess. You'll see the URL, this would be generally the root URL, would be defined as a class variable. And then, let's put this here for now. And then if you have any API keys, you have API key equals, and that will also be here. Generally, I can already hear you saying, well, would you actually hard code it here? No, right? What you would do is put this in the .m file, and then you'd have the settings probably from there, right, .py. And then from there you would say, okay, from settings, import the API key, right, and the API secret. Why would you do something like this? Well, this way we can easily have like a .getignore file and say, hey, do not include the .m file, right? So we can just share, privately, or there's other ways that you can kind of store. These are called like secrets oftentimes, right? Without exposing it to GitHub or to, we could still make this a public repo and just say, hey, you have to put in your own API key and API secret. Okay, so generally that will be there. Sometimes you'll also see it kind of here, like kind of specified here, and then somehow you'd also just load it. So I think this is the pattern I specified in the lab, is put the API key and API secret, like the login and then the secret, to put those all as, these are class variables. Okay. Another thing just to remember, again, I'm like kind of prepping you for the lab, is, okay, so we're gonna call if we call Python 3, we see we have a breakpoint here. Let's just do Python 3-i console. No, I guess I have just main.py. Oh, I need to do, source. It's in the source folder, main.py. I'll show you what that will do in a second. Okay. So this main.py will, import, basically pull it down, like import our whole code base, then create an instance of the client, make the request, turn them into instances. This make request, that's where we're going to hit our breakpoint. Okay, right here. So let's just see this for a second, and we'll move this up for. Okay, so make request. So we'll call source main.py. This main.py will kind of go through these steps. We'll hit the make request, and then we'll hit our breakpoint. Oops, and we broke it because we have this thing called settings, which does not exist. So do that again. All right, so we're right here. We're about to basically make a request. Remember, I can do self.url. I can. It's just not working in this thing. It does have an attribute called URL. Oh, no, it doesn't. It's called root URL. I changed it. Self.root URL. Returns to me, the root URL. And now what I want to do is make the request. I could do it using like this entire URL, This is the query parameter, remember? So we have query parameter that we're beginning, and now it's location name equals Max's wine dive. And then if we want another set of query parameters, we'll put the ampersand. Remember that? And then we'll have the whatever it is, like state equals Texas or whatever. So that's one way of doing it, is just to kind of have the question mark to start the query parameters and then the ampersand in between each key value pair. Another way to do the query parameters, if you remember, is we can do request.get. We'll do the URL. I'll just hard code it for now, just to make it more clear. Oops. And then we can pass through a dictionary here. Let me make this bigger. We can pass through a dictionary here. And these will be our parameters. All right, so what we'll specify is the location name, colon, and then we'll do the value will be Max's wine, I forget what it's called, wine dive. Okay, so that will be our response. And then response.json. And that gives us back, our list of dictionaries as well. So again, just to show that, again, this request.get method, it takes two arguments. The first one is the URL. Here's my root URL. The second one is the list of parameters. Why is this this is more clear, I think, in terms of coding. So we can rewrite this to do something like self.root URL, and then the parameters. This is the key. The name of this argument is params, but if you want, we can just say here's my params and do that, right, and just pass them through. Or maybe what's even nicer is this key. We should be able to optionally say the restaurant name, something like that, and pass that through as an argument, And then how would that get specified, right? So now think about what's happening. We're going to call this make request method. We'll pass through the restaurant name. That will kind of have this dictionary that then when we make the request, says, okay, search for this restaurant. And then where will we pass that through? I'm guessing in the main.py, Now this is going to take an argument. Okay. And you can, so now we can just comment this out from here, and we'll just for now we'll just pass it through by hand. So what we can do is we'll exit out of here. We'll do Python 3 source main.py. That will just create a new client, and then we'll have to call make request and pass through. Right, so we're right here, client. We can do client.make request, and then pass through the name of the restaurant, and that will then, sorry, am I looking at the wrong thing? Yeah, apologies. That will give us the restaurant name, turn into these parameters, right, pass these parameters through to make the request. So we can just do Max's, I need to do double quotes, Max's wine dive. And that will be our response, or I know I spelled that wrong. That will be, let's go back to main.py. That will be, I guess we call this restaurant receipts. Let's just call it that, because that's it's a list of dictionaries. So we'll just call it restaurant receipts is the return value of this. We can maybe see that, right? So these are our restaurant receipts. And then again, right, the next thing is the adapter now is just going to turn this into a list of dictionaries. But you can see, now we can search for a particular restaurant that we want and use our tool to kind of easily do this. And now we have our receipt objects. So it's becoming a pretty good search tool, I suppose. Right, and the adapter just selects the data, right? For each dictionary, let's just pull out the attributes we want, and then pass them into the receipt, add it to the list, and then return that list. Okay, questions about this so far? Anything here? What's next? We can clean this method a little bit better, make this a little bit nicer. Let's go back to main.py. We'll just cav this, assign this to a variable called name. Name equals this, and then we'll, so we'll just pass through the restaurant name into here. This way we can easily change it, and then create our list of objects. I just want to make sure it still works. Oh no, are we hitting a breakpoint? Yeah, we're in adapter.py. Okay, never mind, we'll refactor. Let's make sure it still works. Oh, never mind. I'll have to do this again. Okay, so we'll hit our breakpoint. Where are we? What we want to clean up, so we call this receipt adapter.run, take our list of dictionaries, and we hit our adapter. Okay. So what do we do in select attributes? Well, remember, we start with this dictionary that has information that we don't need all of it, right? That's this dictionary. You can see, right, it's too much. right? Too much. Okay, so what we can do easily, or maybe not easily, but what we can do, I think, is we can say, like, here's the, what would I call these? I don't know, desired attributes, like desired attributes. I don't like, I'll have to change that. I don't love that variable name, but attributes to select. And then that will just be like our location address, our obligation end date, and the location name. And then the total receipts. And that'll be our attributes to select. We'll just put this, let's have this here. I think we'll use this code eventually. So we have this list, right? And now what do we want to do? I think we want to do something like the following. Like if we have this restaurant receipt, right? And we have these attributes to select, we want to say something like, I think you all know how to do this. 4K comma V in restaurant, right? Receipt dot items, right? Like to kind of hold on to the key value pair, but only if K is in these attributes to select, right? So basically, go through the list of tuples, that's restaurant receipt dot items, and only if the key is in this list, do I want to kind of have the key value pair. So this is just a nicer way, I suppose, to hold on to this stuff. And we've seen this before. And we've probably also seen that it doesn't work in the terminal. See that? But let's copy this and paste this here. And now these are my, I don't know, selected attributes or something. And now at this point, we should be able to comment out all of this, I think, and just return my selected attributes. Okay, so let's put a breakpoint here and just see if that works. So I have to exit out of here. Okay, so we specified these attributes. These are the ones we want. Remember, we started with like this dictionary that has a lot of key value pairs, and then we said we're going to go through each key value pair one by one, and only if the key is in this list above will we then assign it, have it in our new dictionary. And it looks nice, right? This is pretty good. And then from there, we can just take these key value pairs, and essentially all we're doing here is call this method, get down to this dictionary, right? Call this method here, runs this, scopes down our dictionary to be smaller, then takes the key value pairs and creates a new receipt. So we should just be able to take, in this case we're calling it our selected attributes. And I broke it. Why? Because, yeah, there is a mismatch. That's a shame. Yeah, well, I guess we just have to, right, why is it giving unexpected name, keyword argument, location name? Because of this should just be name, not location name. So we could, I don't know, there's just a misalignment between what our API has and what we're storing in our instance. So we could just change the dictionary, I guess, say here's my selected attributes, and then we'll just do selected attributes of location of name equals selected attributes. This is a little messy, of location name. Right, so I'm just like, I don't know if there's another way to rename a key other than to essentially do it by hand. And then we need to get rid of the original one, right? So we're just moving this location name over to name, and then we're getting rid of the key value pair of location name. Yeah. Yeah, so this will delete it. So now you can look at it. Right, now name, we got rid of location name and we just call it name. And this looks pretty good, so we'll just copy this. So we'll select the attributes, and then we can remove it, and then pass through the selected attributes into here. And we'll call these just selected attributes. All right, so to summarize, what have we learned? We are, pulling out the scoping this down, and then we just had like this little bit of mess where it's called location name. We want to have it stored as name, so we take this location name value, assign it to name, and get rid of that key of location name by popping it. And now we can pass through the dictionary, I believe. I don't know. So let's just try it here. Will that work? Man, I broke it again. Yeah, anyway, you all get the point. You all get the point. Right, because again, we have another mismatch. I mean, the other way you can do this, right, like the other way to do this, perhaps, is just take the keys, just take these value, like do something like this, selected attributes dot values. Just take the list of values. These look good. Take the list of keys that we want, right, which is like address, end date, whatever, and total, and then zip them together and turn it into a dictionary that way. But I'll let you, this is stuff we've covered before, so I'll let you worry about the Python. Okay.
Hey, Jeff.
So essentially, what did I show you? Just
Yeah, I
reminding
think
you
you had
of
a
this
question.
pattern, right? Like a way to select our data by like specifying it here, right? And then just doing this for key value, only keep it if it's in this list. The other thing we went through was just with the client, right? Like stores these values. The pattern is generally to store like root URL, API key, API secret as class variables. And then the third thing is simply remember that this get argument can take a dictionary, an optional argument as a dictionary. And so we can pass that through, right? Instead of doing this is a little messier, it feels. Oh, is my volume down? You all can't hear me?
Can you hear us?
I hear you.
Oh, okay.
Now I hear you. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
We can hear you, or I can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a quick question. In the labs, and we talked about this yesterday, but in the labs, you're using the method with the decorators and the properties and stuff like that. And when you're using the selected attributes equals like that dictionary comprehension code that we've used before.
Let's see. Hold on. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. When you're using that to set the attributes, you're not able to use like the quote unquote power of the setter.
No, we're not
thing
really,
that we
not totally. Let me stop you there because we're not setting anything on an instance here, right? All we're doing, everything here is local to this method, right? So we start like there's no self dot anywhere, right? So all we're doing is starting with a dictionary that has like 20 attributes, and then storing it as a local variable here, right, as a smaller dictionary. And then what do? Then this is where we store the attributes on the receipt.
Right got it. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Sure. So if you want to use the setters and getters, yes, you can do that. You can kind of, like, you can do that here. Like, have the app property. And then say, like, for instance, maybe it's annoying that a restaurant name always has, is like all uppercased, right? That is kind of annoying, I would say. So you can put, like, how would you do that? Well, you'd probably say self._restaurant name, right? Because what we want to do is have a property of restaurant name, self, and then return self.restaurant name dot lower, something like that, or dot capitalized maybe, right? The issue is now we're trying to reference this attribute here, like this attribute here, but it also looks like this method. To Python, it can't tell the difference. So what we should do is actually call this self._ restaurant name, right? And then refer to this as self._ restaurant name. And so now when we call restaurant name, it will actually, call this method and return it. That makes sense? So if you use properties, generally what you do is you put the underscore as a way. One, it avoids this conflict. And then kind of like, we talked about this a while ago, so you might have forgotten. But the idea is you're kind of saying, hey, you don't really want to access, if it has the underscore, it's like you don't really want to access this directly. You can, but it's not, you've been warned essentially. Instead, you should do the normal, use this, and this will do the cleaning up for you, right? And then, so did that?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Follow up. This is making sense. So if you're doing the method that you're doing now, you have to have an init, whereas before, the method you used in the lab was like you created like an empty instance of the class,
right?
And then you did like class dot attribute equals. So if you're doing it this way, you'd have to have init in the class, correct?
Correct. Right here, we're setting the attributes by passing through the data. In the lab, I think what we did was we had something like create, like you were saying, create an empty object, right? And then basically assign it through the set, like receipt dot whatever it is, name equals, right? This selected attributes of something like that, right? And maybe this, actually is a setter, which I'm kind of skating over a little bit because it's not. I don't want to complicate things too much at this point. If you don't fully remember the setters, that's okay. I don't want to cover it too in depth right now, but obviously review it and we can cover it. We can review it again later.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. But just remember, you can always follow the chain, right? It's like receipt selected attributes. Like, what does this do, right? We kind of remember, I hope, that, right, when this takes data, it takes this argument, whatever we're passing through here as an argument, and it goes to init, right? So where should we look next to see what's going on? We'll go to init, go here, and then just look at what's going on. Self is the instance, dot total. So here we're kind of setting this total attribute equal to what's getting passed through here, here. So you can always kind of it's really just look and try to go step by step and put a breakpoint or whatever, right, to ask the detailed, have Python provide the detailed answer to you, right? Cool. And then Noah, I think, had a question, right?
Oh, no, I was just trying to let you know she had a question because she was asking it.
Cool. Appreciate it.
I have a question, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's relevant, calling API like a root URL, right? So a root URL is an API. This one, endpoint.
Okay, so great question. We're calling this like a root URL. Why do we do that? Just remember kind of back to when we learned about REST, right? And I gave the example of, well, you go to ESPN.com, right? This is our root URL. If you go to ESPN.com/NBA, right, you can see this is a little more complicated. This part is the root URL, and this is like the resource name, right, is NBA. And then if, say, we search, right, and let's search for Steph Curry, okay, this is essentially, they're doing a weird pattern here, but generally it would be like this, name equals Steph Curry, right? So these are the query parameters right here, right? There's no separate search page for Steph Curry, right? You'll be taken to the same page if you search for a different player. But instead, what you're doing is you're literally, you're sending in information and saying, hey, I want you to look for this information. The same way that we did with our like find by name, right? We passed through parameters to do that. Okay, so this part, so again, just to review, this is called the root URL because it like every page on the website has this, right? This is the start, like a tree, like this is the root of the tree, or like, yeah, that's called the main trunk, right? And then there's these different branches, I guess, of like NBA, NHL, right? MLB. These are the resources, essentially, right? If you go to MLB, right, this is organized in terms of a resource. Same thing with like Facebook or Twitter, right? It's always twitter.com, it's always facebook.com. And then maybe it's like slash, people or whatever, or slash posts, slash groups, right? Those are the different resources. So that's where we're getting this name from and calling this root URL. Right, you also heard Pally refer to this as endpoint. You'll hear an endpoint is an endpoint could be it is like what you're making the request to. So for example, with the ESPN.com example, you might refer to ESPN.com/NBA as one endpoint. At least I haven't looked this up, but this is just the way people I know have been using it. This is like one endpoint, and then like NHL, you might see that this is a different endpoint. Okay, like they're two different destinations, I guess, or that you're going to. But this is still the root URL, right? That you're each time. And to learn about this, just remember to learn like about any of this, right? REST, right? We looked at the Wikipedia page for REST. Okay, other questions? Okay, that's probably good for now, then. I do have we will review down the line, like testing some more. I know that people want a little bit more practice on that, and probably like class methods as well. But neither of them I don't think are going to come up really this evening. So I think you'll be okay. All right. So let me show you